Ashwood Lane. Desolate. Forgotten. A single street lamp flickered, casting long, dancing shadows on the cracked asphalt. The only house stood at the road's end, shrouded in an eerie silence. Its silhouette loomed against the backdrop of a starless night, windows like vacant eyes staring into the darkness. This was home now. The air hung heavy with moisture, carrying the scent of damp earth and something faintly metallic. Each gust of wind seemed to whisper secrets through the overgrown hedges, their thorns like claws reaching out to snag unwary passers-by. This place felt forgotten, lost to time, and yet, it hummed with an unsettling energy.
This was home now.
The house itself was a labyrinth of creaking floorboards and dusty shadows. Each step taken echoed through the empty halls, a reminder of the countless stories the walls had witnessed over the years. Sunbeams, filtering through grimy windows, illuminated motes of dust dancing in the stale air. The light, though faint, brought a fleeting warmth to the otherwise cold and desolate rooms. It was unsettlingly quiet, save for the occasional groan of settling wood, a constant reminder of its age and fragility. The silence was thick, almost tangible, as if the house itself was holding its breath. At night, the silence was broken by a low hum, barely audible, emanating from the walls. It was a sound that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, filling the dark spaces with an eerie presence. It pulsed with a rhythmic consistency, like a heartbeat, just on the edge of perception. The hum was a steady, almost hypnotic sound that seemed to sync with the listener's own heartbeat. The hum was more felt than heard, a subtle vibration that seemed to resonate deep within the bones of the house. It was as if the very structure of the building was alive, breathing and communicating in its own mysterious way.
It started subtly, almost imperceptible, easily dismissed as the house settling. But there was something more to it, a hidden depth that hinted at secrets long buried within the walls. But as days turned into weeks, the hum grew more persistent, more insistent, burrowing its way into my subconscious. It became a nightly ritual, a sound that haunted my dreams and disturbed my sleep. It became an unwelcome companion, a constant reminder that I might not be alone within these aging walls. The hum was a ghostly presence, a whisper of the past that refused to be silenced, leaving me to wonder what secrets the house was trying to reveal.
The hum wasn't the only unsettling sound that haunted the nights. At odd hours, usually in the dead of night when the house creaked and groaned around me, I would hear it. A faint scratching, almost imperceptible at first. It was always close, just on the other side of the wall, directly behind my headboard. The sound seemed to be coming from within the very structure of the house.
Scratch, scratch, pause, scratch, scratch. The rhythm was unnerving, almost as if it was trying to communicate. It was the sound of something small, with sharp claws, dragging itself across the other side. The thought of what could be making that noise was enough to keep me awake for hours. Each scratch sent shivers down my spine, my imagination conjuring images too disturbing to bear. I could almost see the creature in my mind's eye, lurking just out of sight. Was it mice? Rats? Or something else entirely? The uncertainty was maddening, each possibility more terrifying than the last.
The scratching, like the hum, became a terrifying constant, a nightly ritual that I dreaded. It was as if the house itself was alive, breathing and moving around me. It was a relentless reminder that whatever lurked within the walls was always listening, always watching, always waiting for the opportune moment to reveal itself. The sense of being watched was inescapable. My sanctuary, my refuge from the outside world, had become a prison of my own making, a breeding ground for paranoia and fear. The walls that once protected me now felt like they were closing in, trapping me with whatever horror lay within.
Sleep became a distant memory. Every creak of the floorboard, every rustle of leaves outside my window, sent my heart racing. Shadows seemed to twist and contort in the periphery of my vision, taking on menacing shapes that vanished when I turned to face them directly.
The scratching continued relentlessly, amplified by the silence of the house. It seemed to be toying with him, growing bolder, more insistent with each passing hour. The hum in the walls intensified, a throbbing pulse that reverberated through his very being.
I felt hunted, stalked by an unseen entity that lurked just beyond my perception. I tried to rationalize the sounds, to convince myself it was all in my head, a byproduct of stress or the house settling. But deep down, a primal fear gnawed at my sanity. silence in the day. Then came the night I heard the scream. It was a muffled, guttural sound filled with such raw terror that it ripped me from my restless slumber. My heart pounded in my chest, my breath catching in my throat. I lay there, paralyzed by fear, listening intently for any further sounds.
Silence. An unsettling, deafening silence that was somehow more terrifying than the scream itself.
I waited for what felt like an eternity, but the sound was not repeated. The following morning, I tried to convince myself it was a nightmare, a figment of my sleep-deprived mind. But the memory of that scream lingered, a chilling echo in the light of day, and the silence from next door was deafening, heavy with unspoken horrors.
There was a man who lived next door. At least the protagonist assumed there was. He had only caught glimpses of him through the overgrown hedges that separated their properties, a tall, gaunt figure with a shock of unkempt hair.
He always seemed to be watching, his dark eyes following my every move. I had tried to be neighborly, offering a wave or a nod when our paths crossed, but he never acknowledged my presence. He moved with a strange, unsettling grace, like a predator stalking its prey.
The few times the protagonist had seen him up close, a strange chill ran down his spine. His eyes were cold and calculating, devoid of any warmth or emotion. His silence was more unnerving than any conversation could have been. It was the silence of secrets kept, of darkness hidden beneath a thin veneer of normalcy. Days turned into weeks, and the unsettling events continued. The scratching, the hum, the feeling of being watched, all intensified. But the man next door vanished. His car, a rusted hulk of a station wagon that had always been parked in his driveway, was gone.
I told myself it was a good thing, that I was finally free from his unsettling presence. But the relief was short-lived. His absence only served to heighten my anxiety, amplifying the sense of dread that permeated every aspect of my existence. The silence next door was now absolute, broken only by the sounds of my own paranoia. It was the silence of a predator lying in wait, its presence felt but not seen, its intentions unknown.
Section 8. A chilling discovery, the basement door.
One night, I woke from a fitful sleep, my heart pounding in my chest. The room was cloaked in darkness, and an unsettling feeling washed over me. I couldn't shake the sense that something was terribly wrong. The scratching was back, louder than ever, directly on the other side of my bedroom wall. It was as if something was desperately trying to claw its way through, the noise sending shivers down my spine. Driven by a morbid curiosity and a desperate need to silence the sound, I found myself drawn to the basement. The hallway seemed longer than usual, each step echoing ominously in the silence of the night. The basement door was old, warped wood held together by peeling paint and rusty nails. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years, a relic of the house's forgotten past. It had been nailed shut, a testament to the house's long history of neglect. The boards were weathered and brittle, as if they had been there for decades, keeping whatever was inside from escaping. As I pried away the boards, one by one, a cold draft blasted me in the face, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of decay. The smell was overwhelming, a putrid reminder of something long dead and forgotten. My heart pounded in my chest as I descended the creaking wooden steps, each step taking me further into the belly of the beast. The darkness seemed to swallow me whole, the air growing colder with each passing second. The air grew thick and heavy, the oppressive silence broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. I could feel the weight of the darkness pressing down on me, every instinct screaming at me to turn back. But I couldn't stop. I had to know what was behind that door.
Section 9. The smell of decay, a sight too horrible to describe.
The basement was plunged in darkness, the air thick with the stench of decay and something else, something metallic and cloying. I fumbled for the light switch, my hand trembling as my fingers brushed against something cold and slimy. The flickering bulb cast long, dancing shadows across the dirt floor, revealing a sight that would forever be seared into my nightmares. The source of the scratching, the hum, the fear that had haunted me for weeks, was right there in front of me. The smell hit me first, a wave of nausea washing over me. Then I saw it. A dark, almost black stain on the dirt floor, slowly spreading outward like a malevolent growth. It was still wet.
Section 10. He knows I'm here, he's coming.
A cold dread gripped me. This wasn't a random act of violence, this was calculated, deliberate. He had lured me here, knowing my curiosity would get the better of me. And now, he was waiting.
A soft thud from above, footsteps on the creaking floorboards of the kitchen. He was back, and he was coming for me.
Panic surged through me, a primal scream rising in my throat. I stumbled back, my foot catching on something solid. I fell, the breath knocked from my lungs, my eyes falling on a small, crudely dug hole in the wall, connecting his basement to mine. He had been watching me all along.
Section 11, silence.
Silence. The scratching stopped. The hum ceased. There was only the sound of my own ragged breaths and the pounding of my heart in my ears. He was close. I could feel his presence, a suffocating weight pressing down on me, squeezing the air from my lungs.
Then a voice, a raspy whisper close to my ear. We could have been friends.